Reality is merely an illusion, albeit a very persistent one. When we boil down what money is, Elon Musk said that money was just data. It's bytes and bits. And everything, and I mean everything, is trackable and traceable. And did I mention hackable?
People get confused. Sometimes they think an economy is money. Money is a database for exchange of goods and services and for time shifting the exchange of goods and services. Money is a database. Money doesn't have power in and of itself. Like you can run the thought experiment of if you're trapped on a remote island, shipwrecked on an island, and you've got $1 trillion in a Swiss bank account. It's worthless. You'd rather have a can of soup. So, all the Bitcoin in the world, you're still going to starve.
The rich and powerful speak cryptic, and this isn't by coincidence. You can have success, but unimaginable success is something different. It's a symptom that points towards a tilted table. When you have a tilted table and you know others have a tilted table, it becomes visible. You could see it as plain as day. Speaking in cryptic messages is fishing for confirmation. You could see sailors tweeting about the Titanic. CZ talks about the Titanic as well. There's enough distance between both of them, and the timing is spread afar. So what are the coincidences? Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss are the owners of Gemini. Now you can see that he's arguing for XRP. He's arguing for Ripple. There's something here that foreshadows Elon Musk. There's something here that doesn't seem like a big deal because you missed the forest for the trees. The Winklevoss twins acquired a ton of Bitcoin after suing Facebook, the same Facebook that got in trouble for rigging elections and working with Russians and having the entire Cambridge Analytica controversy exposed. At the heart of this renaissance is data. Before we continue this show, I'd like to take a moment to thank Incogni. Incogni is a service that reaches out to data brokerages on your behalf and asks them to remove the data they've collected about you from their database. Now, these databases are technically not breaking any laws until you ask them. And if they continue to hold the data after you ask them, this is how they can get into trouble. So they have to delete your data once you ask. Now, you can imagine what's going to happen when finance goes on chain. All of the details of your friend lists and your social media contacts merge with all of your financial data. And then AI is just watching the internet. They're taking the information and categorizing it and making sure that you have a file and it tells them everything they need to know about you. Law enforcement has purchased these files to catch bad guys, but also they've based loans based on this information that data brokerages are collecting about you without your permission. This is why I'm working with Incogni. So go to incogni.com/Darren and they'll start doing all of the hard work for you and automate it, reaching out to all data brokerages on your behalf. Use the link incogni.com/Darren for 60% off the annual plan and a 30-day money-back guarantee.
I've been thinking about money for a long time. And really, it's best to think of money as an information system, primarily an information system for labor allocation. And for practical purposes, it exists in a series of heterogeneous databases, like very different databases in bank mainframes around the world. It moves quite slowly in reality. It may seem to move fast sometimes, and it does with PayPal, which is real time. But the vast majority of the systems out there are batch processing. So the actual reconciliation may take 1 to 5 business days, sometimes longer. And you have the ACH system, which is ancient and still in operation, which is allows transfers effectively like a check would be an ACH transfer, but it's not secure. And you've got the credit card systems, which are also not secure. It would be like handing your username and password to a stranger in a restaurant if you buy a meal. So there's definitely an opportunity for something that is better from an information theory standpoint. So and there you can think of it like data on a network. I think is the way to view it. What has the most throughput? What has the least error? What drops the fewest packets? Fraud, for example, being a source of error. And government interference in currencies being a source of error. But it's fundamentally an information system. So I think it makes sense to support something that improves the quality of information with which we conduct the economy.
Do you remember all of the concerns that I had with CBDCs? Well, it's worse with the private sector. It's worse with stable coins. And the reason for this is it gives this false sense of confidence. Brian Armstrong and Elon Musk have things in common. They both want to tie social media and finance at the hip. And X money is right around the corner. ZK proofs remind me a lot like end-to-end encryption. And this is privacy that happens at a superficial level. Because if you analyze all the foot traffic around your social network and you pair that to all the foot traffic around your financial network, we got a really clear picture. Yeah, that social media and finance start to merge. We've also heard Brian Armstrong echo these sentiments. So social media puts your whole social network open and public.
Providers in the blockchain world to provide data to users. And this is why I started to look into how centralized this landscape is. And then I realized that if every decentralized applications are using node providers to fetch the data. And also for wallets, they are also some kind of applications themselves. So therefore, they're also using these node providers to fetch the data from the blockchain. And this is gonna give us some ideas, like some questions on how this implies their ability on seeing the wallet, the addresses of the users. And so now my current study is not only about what the node provider can see from the wallets, but also what the dApps, what the decentralized applications can see from the wallets as well.
Your wallets are speaking to a node. The node is sending your requests on your behalf. The node understands everything about you. The node is able to see your IP and your fingerprint. And the way it goes about it, you're not going to be able to bypass it. But if you listen carefully, she also said the dApps, the smart contracts, are going to be able to read this data. Palantir has contracts to use XAI. Remember, Musk was selected to create a super API with Doge. Then all of a sudden they went from friends to foe, and that's not by coincidence. Understand what a sandbox is. A sandbox allows developers to test different types of technology. If somebody were to time travel and come back to 2017 and tell me that you're going to see celebrities get involved with NFTs and meme coins, you're going to see the president get involved with NFTs and meme coins, I would have said you're insane. That doesn't make any sense.
And Bitcoin is a candidate for that. It does, I think, some things well, and it's obviously it's evolving, and there are additional things like Lightning being done on top of Bitcoin. But Bitcoin per se is mostly solving for scarcity, or rather solving for essentially having no throat to choke, decentralized. So there's no one who can be coerced in any way to empty their Bitcoin account. Well, I guess they could technically on an individual basis, but the system as a whole cannot. And it has an open ledger, which is also quite good. But transaction volume is low. Transaction cost is high, and usability for the average person is not yet very good, but it has a lot of potential. And I should say that, like, I'm not, and I apologize for taking a long time, but there certainly is a lot to say. In general, I'm a supporter of Bitcoin and the idea of cryptocurrency in general. But as I've said publicly, we do need to watch out for crypto taking, especially Bitcoin, using proof of work to maybe use energy that's maybe a bit too much and not necessarily good for the environment. So, but on balance, I support Bitcoin, and I'm not an investor. The only publicly traded stock I own is Tesla, and the only significant thing I own outside of Tesla is my SpaceX stock that helped create both companies. So, but apart from that, I do own Bitcoin, and Tesla owns Bitcoin, SpaceX owns Bitcoin, and I do personally own a bit of Ethereum and Dogecoin, of course. So,
when Musk got into Bitcoin, he caused a frenzy. But when he exited Bitcoin, he created a council. This council was some of the largest miners in the world were all part of this council. So while you were distracted with meme coins that he also was the cause of, the council was doing things like trying to make it sustainable to mine. And now they're working on nuclear energy, hydro energy, all of the different energy sources that are more renewable and fit the 2030 agenda. The advantage of Bitcoin is that it actually uses a lot of energy. And this is an advantage because you get to dial up how much demand there is for energy and dial it down. And this is all based on price and utility of Bitcoin. AI and crypto go hand in hand. And it's not just the data, it's the infrastructure. Celebrities came out of the woodwork to shill different types of meme coins. They came out of the woodwork to shill different types of NFTs. And now there's fraud case after fraud case after fraud case.
Because Robinhood just made what may be its most ambitious crypto push yet. And for the first time, it's offering tokenized shares of OpenAI and SpaceX, two of the most in-demand private companies in the world, to users across Europe. This is a landmark move because neither company is publicly listed and access to their equity has typically been limited to insiders and ultra-wealthy investors. Now, this rollout is part of a broader expansion here in Europe. Robinhood is extending access to over 200 tokenized U.S. stocks and ETFs with 24/5 trading and dividend support. Now, back in the U.S., the company just launched crypto staking, a feature that had been blocked by the SEC, giving American users a new way to earn yield directly in the app. It is a clear attempt to leapfrog the traditional brokerage stack, especially in markets where crypto is live, but stock trading is not. And behind it all, Robinhood has quietly started building its own blockchain. Now, this is Robinhood's first real swing at building the financial rails themselves and not just listing assets. And that is a huge shift. Those shares currently up more than 130% year to date, guys.
SpaceX and OpenAI are going to be the first private equity listed on Robinhood. As a matter of fact, it's already been listed and it's being sold to EU citizens. When I interviewed Andrew Bustamante, the ex-CIA operative, I asked questions about that crypto was almost like an olive branch between different nations. And he said, Darren, you're coming to the assumption that we want some type of peace. The reality is that we want conflict because that is how we start pushing money into the economy. And think about the trade wars. In 2016, Trump announced Space Force, and the whole world laughed at him. They thought it was a joke until Russia and China started building rockets to get to the moon. Everybody took it serious, and Elon was one of the cronies that benefited. We saw more rockets being pushed into space. He was able to launch Starlink. This is internet for the entire globe. Internet for countries that don't have access to internet or fiber optic lines. And I argue that internet for all is not because of the goodness of people's hearts. It's because of data, but also in those jurisdictions that have resources. You would want resources and you would want to connect them to the global economy so you can transact and trade for those resources. An enemy of my enemy is my friend. Lots of people will claim to be master tacticians, but they're playing checkers. Now, in South America, there seems to be lots of talk about narco traffickers, but there's also lots of talk about rare earths. Rare earths enable technology to go further. It enables them to scale. The developer that created Boring Vaults, his username was 7Cs. This is the first episode of a series, and I'm going to take off where I left off. I will start the next episode with the 7Cs. Thanks, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the show. This is the first episode, like I mentioned. And I also wanted to mention that if you're concerned about cyber attacks, then premium custody is the same custody that the banks and institutional clients will be using. And you can get this with itrustcapital.com/go/Darren. This is my new link. So itrustcapital.com/go/Darren will be in the description below. It costs 1% of each trade, and you can fund it with a minimum of $1,000. So check them out. If you break the rules on what controls you, you break the rules on what you can control.